gonna check.
It says 10 waiting. I'm in YouTube right now.
Yeah.
It says 10 waiting, but it's not playing.
The last time this happened, it was because we had a content strike.
We don't have that now.
Yeah. The best we can do is record the show and see if it uploads automatically. Shoot, if not, well, we'll see. I'll have the backup from Rumble. If all else, oh, we got 10 in YouTube. All right, we're at YouTube now.
It said 10 waiting.
No, okay. I think we're on. We're on. We got a chat saying we're on. We're in. We're good.
We're on. Oh yeah. Okay. It's not playing on my phone, but it does say that it does have the chat saying that it's on.
Yeah, we got 2 people confirming that we're live. Google, fix your servers. Apparently, Rumble has better servers than Google. I think that's what's going on here. Or we're being shadow banned.
Now we're on. Now we're on. There we are.
Yeah.
There we are. Okay, good.
Or we're being shadow banned, which is entirely possible. Or Google doesn't have as good of servers as Rumble.
Dude, I am so. There's no doubt we're shadow banned. I'm also 99% sure that I'm being shadow banned on Twitter. There's no doubt about it. I'm getting much less play on my tweets than I used to. Just interactions, just generally, are like way down. YouTube, I sure think so, because boy, the audience is finding us on Rumble, no problem. You know, that audience keeps growing, whereas YouTube has sort of stayed flat for a while. And I mean, yeah, no, I mean, the stuff I've been hearing about YouTube and algorithm suppression and about, especially what I've been hearing lately from multiple sources now, including a very interesting guy who was in the Trump White House, who was in the State Department, I'm sorry, the Trump State Department, who I want to get on Unregistered, who is talking about CIA, NSA direction of social media companies, not influence, on direction of telling them what to do, what to take down, what to not put up. And YouTube, from I think all accounts, has actually been the most compliant with the government, with government requests or demands. The CEO of YouTube, I forget her name, but I think she's still the same. Did they have a turnover there recently? But it was a woman for many years who, every time I heard her talk, I just gave up all hope for anything good to happen in the world, because she was so concerned about making sure that no one heard any dissenting voices, especially during COVID. I mean, they were hawks on any kind of questioning of the narrative. So we're being suppressed. I don't think there's any question about it.
You want to do the obvious story that ties into this?
Yeah.
Which is Elon versus the ADL.
First of all, I'm so fucking sick of the Jews. Aren't you?
Man, I have nothing wrong to say about any ethnic group at all. I think the ADL is a fine organization. I donate to them every year.
Oh, so you're gay too?
Me and my...
I need a new chat. Can we get another co-host in here?
Yes.
We need to take this little... The ADL is, you know, I've known the ADL my entire life. They're roughly as old as I am. So I've been, you know, and I lived in New York City, and I went to Columbia. I was at Columbia University for better part of 2 decades. So I know this world. They are, thinking back on it, you could argue that they were the first identity politics organization in the country. That they really, especially I was looking recently at sort of this old headlines from them and these old claims they made like back in the 80s and 90s. They were definitely playing the identity politics card. One of the interesting things about them was that they sort of demonstrated this reform Judaism, universalist, what I think is bullshit, you know, embrace of all the peoples of the world, anti-racist stuff. Jewish left-wing Jews in this country were among the inventors of anti-racism as an ideology, which really came out of World War II. ADL is descended directly from them. I mean, these are really the founders of wokeness, which I think is really identity politics, is what I don't like wokeness. I think identity politics is a better descriptor, but that's who they are. They have been playing this game longer than anyone. They invented the game. And then if you read Norman Finkelstein's work, which everyone should, The Holocaust Industry, his classic book, and Norman was on my show a few months ago, talking about other matters. But if you read his book, and since then he's written quite a lot on the ADL and in general what he calls the Holocaust industry.
Just for the record, what ethnicity is Norman Finkelstein?
He's Jewish as fuck. I mean, he's like triple Jewish. I mean, he's like both parents, I believe, were, refugees from the Holocaust. Eastern European, Ashkenazi Jew, straight up, all the way. I believe shtetl Jews, meaning small Jewish villages in the hinterlands. I'm not sure about that, but definitely both, absolutely, in Eastern Europe as of 1941, for sure. Yeah. The Holocaust industry, according to Norm, and this applies to not just the ADL, but a whole host of Jewish civil rights and human rights organizations. Their primary function is, well, there are two functions. One is to support the Democratic Party. And number two, and this is the main purpose, according to Finkelstein, and I think this is true, is to protect Israel, the state of Israel, from criticism in the United States. And the way that they've done that is to label any criticism of Israeli policies vis-a-vis the Palestinians, as being anti-Semitic. And a lot of people listening to this will know this trick really well. This is not news to anybody. They've seen this played many, many times. What I'm saying is the ADL invented that game. They invented that game, which was the original woke game. The sort of aggressive deployment of racial and ethnic identities for particular political purposes, right, has been, widespread. I mean, everybody's gotten in on that game. Even conservatives and Republicans and MAGA and Christians lately have been claiming grievances based on their social identity. I happen to believe that in the latter few cases, those grievances in recent years are legitimate. I do think there is racism and other forms of unjust discrimination that happen in this country. I think it is overwhelmingly experienced by those people, conservatives, Republicans, especially MAGA people. I'd say white people in certain sectors of our society, not in the United States writ large, but in certain sectors, there's no doubt that white people are discriminated against. Anyway, I mean, the use of identity, especially racial or ethnic identity, to basically bribe through a system of shame, right? By ascribing collective guilt onto some other group like whites, versus blacks, or like Germans versus Jews, or really the entire West versus Jews. That's this become the game in American politics. And it was invented in the 1990s when I was at Columbia, and I knew many people who were a part of the ADL world, many friends of mine. This is back when I was basically training to be in the establishment, so I knew these people. Yeah, I mean, that's what they were doing in that moment. I saw the birth of wokeness, and what people don't know is that its first practitioners, maybe not its first theorists, were critical race theory, also at Columbia, exactly where I was, right across the street. The law school there at Columbia was across the street from the history department. The first practitioners of woke politics was the ADL, Anti-Defamation League. So this battle right now between the ADL and Elon Musk, and really not just Elon Musk, of course, but the purpose of going after Musk is to go after all of us who are in any way critical of Israel. And by the way, what's Elon said about Israel?
He
I don't
is
even know.
philo-Semitic. He hasn't said anything about Israel in particular, to my knowledge. He has said nothing but good things about Jews and Jewish people. He canceled Kanye. He kicked Kanye off as soon as he started his I Love Hitler little spiel, and he has been nothing but deferential to the Jews in his public speech.
Well, I mean, it's, again, everything, it has to have something to do with Israel, directly or indirectly, for them to do this. That's what the ADL is about, right? Primarily, they're interested in protecting Israel from criticism. So, I mean, I think what they're doing, at least in going after Elon, they've identified him correctly, and this is utterly correct, as allowing large numbers of anti-Semitic people. I mean, according to your definition, my definition, anti-Semitic people onto Twitter. However,
real quick,
he's also
okay.
Hold on. Sorry, he's also allowing onto Twitter a great number of people who are not anti-Semitic, never said anything anti-Semitic, but were fierce critics of the state of Israel. So with Elon's new policy of allowing all the right wingers and all the people with crazy politics back into Twitter, because of course all the anti-Semites are anti-Israel as well, you added this whole class. I'm sure the ADL is right about this whole class of people, some of whom are anti-Semitic, some of whom are not, but all of whom are anti-Israel. So Twitter, knows no doubt about it, has gotten profoundly more anti-Israel, more anti-Zionist since Elon took over than before. So, I mean, it's this is what's going on. Again, everything comes down to geopolitics. Sorry to be boring, but it's just true.
This is the same time, I think the same week that Elon lets Kanye back on Twitter, the same week that he lets Donald Trump back on Twitter. Or it's X now. So it's like X, I think, for Elon is a new clean slate, and he's trying the free speech thing all over again.
I will not refer to it as X ever.
Right?
Unless he changes it to XXX, then I will.
It's like these geniuses of branding, Mark Zuckerberg and Elon, have the worst branding ever. They have X and they have Threads. Did I say on here the story about Elon's past with X as a name for a company? Just that I'm not sure if you said went too deep into detail, but that he likes it as a suffix for everything. That it's like a math thing for him. Well, I mean, the story is, and this is in one of the big biographies of either him or somebody, by somebody very like establishment and reputable, and they would have no reason to. And this is before liberals hated Elon. That when he was at PayPal, he strongly proposed that PayPal change its name to X. And this is why Elon is no longer at PayPal, because he was summarily dumped, I guess, by the other partners when he made this idiotic proposal. So he has a history of having terrible taste. I haven't heard anybody say anything good about the rebranding or the renaming, right? Have you? Not a word. There's been some ironic, like, right-wing meme accounts who, whenever Elon posts like the Dark Knight X logo thing, or like whenever Elon posts a tweet with the X logo and some stylized cheap Adobe Premiere creation, they like take it on as a meme, but I haven't seen anything beyond that. I mean, he's got a whole little mini army of stans on Twitter. I'm really sorry to say, many of whom, maybe most of whom, are part of our world. You know, they're close to us politically. I know a few of these people, and certainly we share audience and all that. I mean, it's like sort of broadly speaking, like right-wing libertarian.
All those people are like huge fans, and my good buddy Ian Miles Chong. These people just love Elon, and basically, I think it looks to me like they actually have a job.
Well, if you're on his platform, it's good to say good things about him.
They act like they have a job. They do. They act like they have some kind of job with Twitter, which is to run interference for Elon Musk. Which, whatever. I mean, I don't care. It's all private, voluntary transactions. I don't give a shit. But I mean, I sort of give a shit in that Elon works for governments, including in the past the Ukrainian government, although now he's deciding to stop them from bombing Crimea. Did you see this story? Elon Musk single-handedly, this I think is true. This is not an exaggeration. Elon Musk single-handedly stopped Ukraine from bombing Crimea. Now, for those who don't know, that is, according to everybody, the precipitating event for World War III, or at least Russia wiping out Kiev. That would have been the most provocative, escalatory thing to do, short of assassinating Putin.
And you still won't call it X?
And I still won't call it, well, because fuck it, because the next minute he's like working for the other government. I mean, but Elon is also responsible for basically, arguably, the deaths of many Russian soldiers because he helped Ukraine with Starlink do targeting. I mean, reconnaissance and targeting, I believe, and just communications generally for frontline troops, for Ukraine only. He did not help Russia. Dude is a businessman. I get that. It's just when your business is playing off one government over another against another, I'm not a fan. And I don't think that's like what, Ludwig von Mises had in mind when he thought, or Ayn Rand had in mind when they thought of the glorious businessman doing wonderful things for humanity. No. And that's what Elon's. And you look at Tesla, I don't know all the ins and outs of this, but I do know that the subsidies for Tesla make Tesla possible. It like immense subsidies of all kinds from multiple governments, national and local governments, handing over land, huge amounts of land. When I was in Texas, I drove by one of the Tesla plants, and apparently the land was just given to him by either the state or the county or whatever. I mean, just, acres and acres and acres of prime Texas land. Just boop, here you go. Same with Twitter, by the way, and Facebook. San Francisco and California gave them free land, free rent, basically, in downtown San Francisco when they started here. Those fucking companies were subsidized from the beginning. I was calling out the connections between social media companies and the NSA and the CIA. Years ago, you can go look at my debate with Ken Pope-Hat White at Reason. There's a Reason debate. This was in about 2018. Yeah, and that's when I wasn't the first to do that work, but I was the first, I think, to call this out, that the social media companies were taking orders from the intelligence agencies back in 2018. Anyway. Yeah, so fuck Elon. He's part of that little nexus that I just mentioned about, connections between social media and the government. He's still there. And I'm hearing really terrible things about what's her face, Vaccarino is doing, the CEO. She sounds in some ways worse than the old crowd. She sounds not that she's willing to comply with the government, as was, that was Yoel Roth's position. And by the way, Yoel Roth often opposed stuff from the FBI. No, she's seeking it out. She's eagerly embracing it. She wants it.
Not only the government, but the ADL, ironically.
Totally.
She's taking word for word their policies. The whole freedom of speech versus freedom of reach euphemism that Elon used probably was tactfully told to him by her, I bet. And it's literally the ADL's policy of not showing people harmful content, but still allowing them to talk into the void to no one.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, the ADL is also in the business of protecting the United States government.
Yeah,
from
yeah,
any,
yeah, yeah.
from any kind of, which is what you're saying, kind of from any sort of revolutionary or existential threat.
So you're the U.S. historian. I have
Mm.
to ask you about the ADL's origins and who this guy Leo Frank was.
In 1913, in Atlanta, Georgia, Leo Frank, who was a Jewish American man, I believe he was from Atlanta, was lynched for the alleged rape of a white woman. And I say white for a couple of reasons. One is just to identify her, I suppose. And these days, you have to identify people by their race. It's become mandatory, even though we got past that for a while. But now Black Lives Matter has made it mandatory to identify people by their race primarily. Anyway, I say that also because as of 1913, Jews in this country were not considered to be white. So you can read my book, Renegade History of the United States, to get more on that. Or you can read a book published just a few years before 1913 by a guy and a journalist at the time named Arthur Abernathy, called, the title, and this is Michael Malice's favorite title of any book. In fact, he just tweeted it out recently. He loves talking about this for obvious reasons, if you know Malice. It's called, the title is The Jew, a Negro. The was it my pronunciation of it?
I can't keep a straight face for too long.
Negro. That's what it got you, right? My enunciation is Negro. That always gets my friends whenever I speak like that. Which is how academics used to say the word back in the day, Negro. They used to really get into it. Like, they weren't shy about saying it, right? So they'd like emphasize that shit. They'd get inside each syllable. Negroes, the Negro. Made it be like in a lecture hall, like Negroes here and Negroes there. We should bring that back, by the way. I find it to be a much more endearing term than black.
Yeah. I wish I had a clip prepared so we know that you're not racist, but this is
done,
absolutely
dude.
true.
Oh, it's over now. Fuck it. We're done. I'm moving. You know where I'm moving? We're moving to Niger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because we're going to have our channel in Niger.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Russia will allow that, you know, because they're racists, just like us. It's all, see how it's all coming together right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, do you think the question is, I asked you this about Emmett Till in one way or another, but did Leo Frank do it?
Or, sorry. Yes. Back to Leo Frank.
How did this Jewish man not find a black person in Atlanta, Georgia to pin this rape on?
Back to Leo Frank. Yeah. So then, so he's lynched. Leo Frank is lynched in Atlanta. And the people among the group that lynched him were the founders of the Ku Klux Klan, meaning the second Ku Klux Klan, the second incarnation of the Klan, the 1920s Klan. This is the really big Klan, got to about 5 million members. So, you know, the founders of that movement were the people who lynched Leo Frank. And so the ADL has talked about Leo Frank every day for my entire life, as has every Jewish group in this country. Here's the thing about Leo Frank, everybody. Multiple, and I mean scores, of independent investigations, forensic and otherwise, of the alleged rape of this woman by Leo Frank have been conducted. And every single one of them concludes that he did it. In which case, how badly did they fucking hurt that motherfucker? Did they torture him before they hanged his ass? That's what I have to say about Leo Frank, ADL. Come at me. And we'll go look at some studies. We'll go look at, you know, whether Leo Frank actually did rape that girl. I believe she was under 18 too. Mary Phelan, I think her name was. So the original name of the Ku Klux Klan, I think this is right. Is this right? Was the Knights of Mary Phelan. So the ADL loves to tell you that the Ku Klux Klan and the big scary Ku Klux Klan
was founded as an anti-Semitic organization, not an anti-Black organization, to which I say, correct. Correct. The second Klan, the big Klan, the Klan of the 20s, the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
They hardly messed with Black people at all. Like, Black people by that point were a secondary concern to them at most. They really didn't care. This was during the height of mass immigration. The height of mass immigration, sort of the peak of mass immigration by 1920, when the Klan really takes off. You've got, this is the biggest wave of immigration in world history. World history. No, never have there been this many people migrating into one country, and then it was just the East Coast too of this country. So it was incredible concentrations of immigrants all up and down the East Coast, some in the Midwest too. And guess what? And this is something that, you know, everybody needs to be looking at this period right now, because we are reliving it. Because we've had, guess what? In the last 20 or so years, 30 years, you could say really since 1965, since the reform of immigration laws, we've had mass immigration on a similar scale, actually a greater scale, both here and of course in Europe. And we're in Europe, it looks like New York City in 1920, which was that 1920 New York City was chock fucking full of Jews and Italians. 20 years prior, it wasn't. And of course, they radically changed the city, the culture, what New York City is today. That was created by those immigrants. New York City is 100 years old in terms of its culture, and it's all immigrant. There is almost nothing except for a few names on buildings in New York City that were old, the old gentry, the old landed elite in New York City. No. It's all, everything was created and recreated primarily by Jews, secondarily by Italians and other ethnics and Catholics, etc. And the Klan, and one of the things they did was, of course, Jews very infamously did, they invest in Italians. They got really into the music scene. They saw that as this emerging market. This is when jazz is just becoming commercial. This is like the invention of pop music, right? And the Jews especially get in on this. And they go hard on investing in record labels. So almost every record label at that time, jazz record label, was owned by a Jew. And also nightclubs, music clubs all over the country. Damn near every one of them was owned by a Jew or an Italian. Now, what was happening in the 1920s? These clubs are going crazy. People love jazz. This is the jazz age. They're flocking in. And many of those people were, oh, fuck, white women. White women heard this music on the phonograph and started dancing and got really excited about it. And so excited they had to leave the house and go to a nightclub downtown that's owned by some Jew boy that has Negroes in there dancing to black music, Negro music. Are you kidding me? This is the origin of the Ku Klux Klan. They used to patrol roads around towns looking for cars parked on the side in which there was a white woman with an ethnic, a Jew or an Italian, having sex or making out. And if they found one, they would beat the shit out of the guy and report the girl to the cops and her parents. That's what the Ku Klux Klan mostly did in the 1920s. The big Klan, that's most of what they did. And then, of course, petition governments to kick out the immigrants, which they got in 1924. Not kick out, but they stopped immigration in 1924. Altogether, just stopped in 1924. No immigration from then on. That was largely because of the Klan and its influence. So we're reliving these politics, man. It's amazing how much we're reliving this. And yes, I am saying this. MAGA now has some major similarities with the Ku Klux Klan of the 1920s. That's in part to say that the Ku Klux Klan of the 1920s is very misunderstood. It was largely an anti-immigration / and traditionalist organization. And that's who MAGA is. So we need to be talking about this moment in history. This is as important as it gets. Also, the immigrants, guess what? Were being used by which political party? The Democratic Party, to establish its dominant rule. The immigrants flipped to the Democrats, or basically were Democrats from the beginning because of the party. The machine bosses were all part of the Democratic Party. So they were in the Democratic Party when they landed on our shores. And the Democrats knew that. And so they encouraged this immigration for a while. And they got all these loyal voters at this bloc that then elected, Franklin Roosevelt and the first Catholic president, John F. Kennedy. That's because of the immigrants, and all of them, all the Democrats, and liberalism sprung from those loins, all those immigrant loins. So this is, again, this whole set of politics is being played out again, or replayed with new variations and twists, but it's really fundamentally the same dynamic. So I haven't heard many people talking about this period in history recently, but we need to be.
Wow.
What do you think? What do you think? Are you pro or anti-Klan?
Am I pro or anti? I do want to mention that the Ku Klux Klan of the 20s also sponsored roads and marched in your local 4th of July parade.
Yes, they did. No, well, wait, hold up. They did a lot more than that, because as I said, they had several million members.
Yeah.
They were concentrated, and this is another thing that people don't know. People think of the Klan as like, rednecks in Alabama. No, the big Klan of the 20s was concentrated in cities in the Midwest, all over the Midwest. Detroit had one of the biggest Klan organizations in the country. A lot of the Detroit Police Department after the 1940s was made up of ex-Klan members, by the way. A lot of people don't know this. Became like an all-black city with not just an all-white, but an all-Klan police force. And so that's why in the 60s you have those riots in Detroit. They were immense and really changed everything in American politics. But anyway, yeah, so they did a lot of community work, like investment. They did sort of like, they were like a mutual aid society in a lot of ways. I think they had insurance programs, and they provided all sorts of like health care and often jobs. I was going to say, it wasn't just urban. It was, and not Southern, it was Midwestern. It was also very middle class. There have been multiple studies done on the Klan, all of which have found that the typical Klansman of the 20s was a dentist or a shop owner, or like an employer of an owner of a business with like 5 employees, something like that. These were not rednecks at all. They were WASPs and traditionalists who didn't want the culture of their country to change. And I want to like step back and just everyone to think about that for a second. And I've been thinking about this for a long time. Like, why is that wrong? Have you noticed that we've been trained to reflexively believe that that is bad? It's not me. Like I'm a total cosmopolitan. Like I want stuff to change, and I want to go everywhere, and I want everyone to visit and all that. But like, but I also have come to realize that I used to be bigoted, prejudiced against that notion that changing one's culture, immediate culture, the one they live in, that resisting change to that culture is bad, evil, wicked, xenophobic, racist. It's not good. It's an amazing thing, this cosmopolitan globalism that has been implanted in our brains over the last, I'm going to say, since World War II. That has been one of the major projects of liberals in this country, has been to get us all to think like globalists, which is to think like a cosmopolitan, and to think that resistance to change in one's culture is reactionary, outdated, and fundamentally evil. That is what's going on. That is the Trump movement. That is the Trump movement and the reaction to it right there in a nutshell. That's what happens. The globalist elite, the liberal establishment, they believe that you should be a citizen of the world, at least in that way, at least intellectually and politically. So 1920s Klan, that's where it's at.
You want to go into the Florida Nazis or the or do you want to talk about your thing in Ukraine?
I do want to look at Boneface again. That guy just freaks me out. And I've been around people like that. Like I used to hang out with punk rockers back in the 80s, and like I've been at back in the day, people don't know this, in the 70s, 80s, and even maybe 90s, but certainly in the 70s and 80s, you know, like hardcore left-wing protests, like marches and demonstrations, of which I went to many, both as a child and as an adult. Quite often, almost always, there would be a counter protest by the local Ku Klux Klan or Nazi party. There's always like 5 or 6 in your town, and they would join together and come and protest. So when I was a kid, many times I was like standing right next to actual Nazis, like with the whole thing. They'd wear the full uniform. So I know these people. But when I see, not really, but I mean, I've been around them. When I saw this dude, but Boneface, who apparently he's sort of famous, I guess, among Nazis and those who watch the Nazis.
Did you see what Laura Loomer dug up about Boneface?
No.
All right, this is due to Laura Loomer's amazing journalism. Here is a video of Boneface, the Nazi that was spotted in Florida, spouting hate and giving everybody campaign ads.
Впервые я поехал на Украину сразу после революции на Майдане. Наш полк еще не был сформирован. Тогда это был всего лишь батальон, но я активно сотрудничал с добровольческим корпусом правого сектора Великобритании, и через них я оказался в Мизантропик Дивижн. Многие говорят, что якобы меня туда отправило ФБР, но ФБР не имело к этому отношения на самом деле. Это было Центральное разведывательное управление. Они свели меня с ними. Тогда все дело было в самой революции, в том, что там стали активно действовать различные военные организации, которые придерживались принципов национализма. Националисты здесь, в США, никогда не могли объединиться. Понимаете, о чем я? Это было совершенно не похоже на то, что происходило на Украине. Меня очень это привлекало, как и многих других добровольцев из Америки. Когда батальон Азов только сформировался, 3-я рота была исключительно англоговорящая. Люди из Норвегии, Финляндии и подобных стран, ну и, конечно, американцы. Так что это было подразделение, в которое входили самые разные люди со всего мира. И это еще до того, как Азов распался на различные батальоны и подразделения, когда он был крайне слабо организован. Их было очень много. Было много американцев. Зеленский бросил нас умирать. Он боится нас еще больше, чем русских. Я убежден в этом. Зеленский с этим своим постоянным торгом, выспрашиванием у мира нового оружия, это постоянное требование оружия. Мы не видели ничего из этого оружия. Вообще нам ни разу ничего не дали. Он решил нас всех сдать. Позволил арестовать всех защитников Азовстали до последнего. Ты же только что послал нас умирать за разваливающийся на части алюминиевый завод. Ну да, он всем нам дал гражданство, да. Он всех нас наградил медалями за заслуги, обращался с нами очень хорошо. Но когда речь зашла о выдаче нам карт социального обеспечения, документов, удостоверяющих личность, тут его решимость пошатнулась. И я начал...
He took our course on, and he found out about the whole history of the relationship between the CIA and Ukrainian Nazis and how that is the foundation of the war. He took a course and then he went and lived it out, carried it out. He's like, oh shit, this is what I'm supposed to be doing when I'm a Nazi. I didn't know I was supposed to be in Ukraine. Well, Mr. Boneface here. So yeah, he spilled the beans. Now he spilled the beans before this, or just now with this other video that just came out. The reason he's in the news was this video of him on his overpass with a bunch of other Nazis doing whatever, protesting, being Nazis. And at the end of this other guy is being interviewed. This other Nazi is being interviewed. Boneface is standing behind him. And toward the end of the interview, the Boneface starts yelling, "Slava Ukraine!" Like what Slava Ukraini, whatever it is, long live Ukraine. The whole like. And talking to, I think he said multiple things that were like, yeah, pro-Ukraine. And then it turns out, yeah, he actually fought there. It was actually went and took up arms and actually fought with the Azov Brigade back in the day. So he's got to know something. Interesting. He says a few things that the establishment doesn't want you to hear. One is that Nazis would be motivated to fight for Ukraine. How strange. That like this ultra crazy Nazi would want to fight for Ukraine. Huh. and that the CIA was running things in Ukraine. That's the other thing he dropped there, sounded like. So God bless Boneface. The face, man, it's good. I mean,
Yeah.
it just goes to show you, when I say things like a little group of Nazis or something, when I belittle it, I mean it, because it's all obviously performative. I mean, and well, okay, then we can talk about the feds. And so I have a theory about, I wish you want to play that other video, the one of them on the overpass? Because I have a theory can you play that?
Okay, let me dig it up. But before I do, I just want to mention.
I think I know what happened with it, and no one has said this. I think I'm right about this, but go ahead.
There's a Daily Beast piece right now saying, quote by Jared Holt, right-wing influencers deny reality by claiming neo-Nazis are, quote, feds.
I know, I saw that. Hilarious, bro. Whenever I read one of those pieces, alleging to debunk one of our alleged conspiracy theories, it's like it's always vacuous. I mean, there is never any substance, there is never any argument, there is never any counter evidence. It's amazing. But yeah, so they're on there's this little group. It was like was it Patriot Front, or was it
it was called Bloodline, I believe. Is that what the group is called?
Well, no. Well, is it Blood Tribe? Yeah, Blood Tribe.
Blood Tribe, yeah.
Okay, right. Oh, that's right. Someone totally. So there's two actual Nazis. Boneface is one of them. The other is this Christopher something guy. And these geniuses on Twitter just debunked the whole thing and like instantly. And they went and they researched both of them, and like within, I think they said they spent less than an hour, and within less than an hour they could debunk the entire thing, as these guys are all feds. Now, I think what happened though is with Boneface, I don't think he was facing charges. Maybe he was facing charges. The other guy was facing some serious charges. And then all of his charges suddenly disappeared, and he's doing all these public events, and he's a true Nazi. I mean, he's an actual real Nazi, right? But of course, what they've been doing for the last year and a half or so, Michael, guess what events they've been protesting exclusively? Guess what kinds of events they've been protesting? Drag Queen Story Hour. Like actual Nazis would bother with Drag Queen Story Hour. But the feds know that every liberal housewife in this country knows that Nazis really hate Drag Queen Story Hour, because that's who's behind the attack on Drag Queen Story Hour. So the whole thing's just obvious as shit. Now, so if you look at this video, you'll see that every single one of these Blood Tribe dudes is wearing a full face mask and sunglasses and a baseball hat, totally anonymous, except these two guys, Mr. Boneface and this Christopher guy, who got off these pretty insane charges and is spending his time protesting drag queens when he should be protesting Jews and international bankers, for God's sake.
Stick up for your fucking self.
So what does that mean? Does that mean violence?
No, it doesn't mean violence.
What we're doing now, this is it.
All of our goals can be achieved non-violently. The most violence is on your side. Subjugation of our race. That's what we stand against. The reason that you presuppose that there would be violence is because you are ready to use violence to stop us.
When you say you
And all of the people on that side of the fence, white subjugators, you work for that team. Kikes, Jewry, capitalism, billionaires. That's your side.
Yeah. Was that the video you were thinking of?
Yes. It is never performative to speak like this.
Mm-hmm.
This is the voice of authenticity. That's what a real Nazi sounds like.
Uh-huh.
He watched his Hitler speeches and he's like, oh, that's how we're supposed to do it. Okay. And he practiced in front of the mirror. We will.
He got the criticism of capitalism right from Hitler.
So I earlier described this guy as a real Nazi. Now I'm not even sure about him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Well, anyway, I did see there was a third guy without a mask on, but everybody else I think was totally totally blanked out. And obviously they're feds. Do we need to tell this audience that these guys were feds? Patriot Front is so obviously feds. I can't even, I mean, I have seen PhDs.
They're called Patriot Front.
Patriot Front. Patriot Front. I have seen Princeton professors tweet about the menace of Patriot Front. I'm like, dude, every member of Patriot Front voted for Biden. Trust me. Trust me. Every one of them. Maybe a few voted for Bernie.
Richard Spencer famously is pro-Biden. I think he voted for Biden. Like, they're
So-
publicly pro-Biden.
Speaking of feds, what happened there? I mean, dude changed. Something he's also, isn't he like pro-Ukraine now? Yeah, he's pro-Ukraine too.
Mhm.
Like, well, I guess that fits with the Nazi part. I don't know. Although, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I haven't heard the far right have this out, but yeah, wait, most of the right is pro-Russia, but there should be some element within the hard right that is sympathetic to Azov and then Ukrainian. I haven't heard about that. Have you heard about that?
I mean, there is, but they all look like feds.
Oh my God. You think it's that manufactured? Maybe. Wait, that's right. Wait, hold on. If there are real Nazis in this, there should be significant numbers, like meaning like 5 to 10 vocal people, like on Twitter or whatever, who would at least be sympathetic to the Azov brigade, right? I mean, I haven't heard any American voice any kind of support of Azov, right? How's that? And I hang out with the right. I watch the right. This is weird.
It's the mainstream left and obvious Fed Nazis online who support Azov.
Wow. Yeah, how many legit Nazis are there?
Have you seen the movie Shot Caller?
No.
It's
Sounds fun.
It's a prison movie. It's basically a giant drunk driving PSA. The plot is a guy drinks, gets into a car accident that kills somebody, and because of that, he has to do serious prison time. And he was just like a normal square dude, could have been any of us. And then to survive in prison, he becomes like the leader of a Nazi gang. And basically, it's step by step him getting in with the Nazis, but they never talk about race. They talk about doing drug deals. They talk about gang loyalty. It's a total Nazi movie, and it's all about how the Nazis are just practical prison gangs that form.
If I ever go to prison, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I am going to climb up the gang ladder, and I'm going to be the shot caller. That's it. I mean, what else? It's the only rational thing to do. Like, ask an economist what you should do in prison socially, you know? I think that's the way. Of course, that's why they do it. They're not irrational actors. Anyway, David Skarbek had him on the show a couple of years ago. Amazing book about prison gangs and how they govern prisons. It's a wild story. Anyway. So what's your point?
I think that
asking you to restate it.
Yeah. Well, I think that accounts for a large amount of the quote unquote real Nazis are Nazis of that variety that just use Nazi imagery to look as scary as possible.
Right.
Who are just your regular gangland guys.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. Don't you have to be a bit of an intellectual to be a Nazi? I mean, it's a radical ideology, right? Like any radical ideology requires reading, you know, and thinking fairly sophisticated concepts. No matter which ideology it is, if it's radical, every single one of them requires pretty intense reading. You know, communism, libertarianism, and fascism. I mean, it's pretty heady stuff, actually. You know, I mean, Nazism comes straight out of intellectuals. It's birthed by intellectuals. It's their idea. It's always a set of ideas, you know. That's sort of what's odd to me. I was always when I was at these rallies with my parents and we'd see these Nazis over here, I was always looking at them like they would look sort of rednecky, or maybe I assumed they were rednecky, like from somewhere in like Central Valley, California or something. But then I was like, wait, don't you have to read Mein Kampf to be a Nazi? Like, You got to read it and then understand it.
Mhm.
And to understand it, you've got to understand European history and a lot of European philosophy too. Boy, you're going to be a redneck in Bakersfield and sit down with a big ass book and read about European history. I mean,
As somebody else, we share this in common. I also read Playboy for the articles.
yeah.
And there's the Playboy interview of George Lincoln Rockwell. Do you remember that?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, I know they did, yeah.
Yeah, founder of the American Nazi Party. And in that, he basically admits that, yeah, nobody was paying attention to me when I was talking about like the family and like just standard right-wing politics. I only got attention when I started bringing out the swastikas and the flags. And he basically says it's very, very performative. He admits that, like, he did it for attention.
Totally performative. Right. I mean, you don't even, what's the point of being, even if you hold those, even if your politics are identical to Adolf Hitler's, why would you identify as a Nazi? I mean, Hitler wouldn't want you to do that. He would realize it's totally ineffective. You're guaranteed to get squashed. I mean, didn't they make that clear that they would not tolerate the existence of Nazis? Didn't they make that clear? I think it was fairly demonstrative what they did to Nazis. And yes, you can advance those politics in all sorts of other ways that would be at least viable. You won't be stopped out of the gate. Now, this is funny. What I'm saying right now is what the left is saying, which is that, and I'm beginning to think about this, by the way, that all these populist nationalist movements around the world, including MAGA, are either descendants of or Nazi themselves, or some kind of fascist. I think it's true. I think it is. I think there are major elements, major overlaps. What's interesting is that there are bigger overlaps with liberalism and fascism. I've written a whole lot, and we have a course on this too, about how the New Deal and fascism were close siblings, damn near identical in the original form of the New Deal. So fascism, it turns out, was the most successful ideology of the 20th century, in that everyone has borrowed from it. The dominant regimes are modeled after it. The corporatism of the New Deal is the fascist economic model. The suppression of free speech. And by the way, we're going to have David Beta on Unregistered soon, and we're going to have him teach for us on this topic real soon. The suppression of free speech and civil liberties by Roosevelt is the great untold story of the New Deal of the 20th century. David has a brand new book out about this, and he is one of the greatest American historians of our lifetime. He is unrecognized as such, but I promise you he is arguably the best historian of our lifetime, because he's the only one who makes these kinds of arguments and exposes these kinds of people and things. The liberal establishment will protect Franklin Roosevelt to the death, but David goes right in and shows what he was. He was an imperialist. He was a fascist, certainly in terms of economics and in terms of state control. He was. I mean, and this is why Mussolini and Hitler admired him tremendously. For years and years, they were extolling the virtues of Franklin Roosevelt and his wonderful New Deal. And they said, the Gestapo's newspaper, the Volkischer Beobachter, said over and over again, what Franklin Roosevelt is doing with the New Deal is exactly what we are doing with National Socialism. Over and over again. So did Mussolini. So you see fascism in the opponents of the New Deal international order, because of course then the New Deal then took over the rest of the world via American imperialism, and its opponents around the world now have finally started to organize and fight back. But it turns out that they too have some elements, or carrying forward some of the elements, some different elements from the fascism of Italy and Germany. So fascism won, turns out, and now we're all living just in a war between fascists. I think that's not a bad way to think about it, because the behavior of MAGA recently
has been quite fascistic. I didn't think so at first, which is why I was sort of attracted to that movement for a while, at least quite interested in it. It's kind of revolting now. And they really want a lot of heavy duty control over people's private lives. There's no doubt about that. They also want a theocracy. There's no doubt. They want Christianity taught to school children in public schools. They want to proselytize through public schools. There's no doubt about that. So, and, you know, I do think many of them want to lock up every gay person. I know this. I mean, Chaya Ratchik lives at TikTok. She has said the entire LGBT community is evil. So, you know, and they blame all gays, and many of them blame all gays for grooming and pedophilia. And so I have no doubt that many of them would advocate, if they could get away with it, incarcerating all gays. Honestly, I mean, I see that. Yeah, no, these are fascists. They're just it's a different kind of fascism. I mean, or they take different elements from fascism than the liberals do. Liberals are much more sophisticated and nuanced and are more interested in like different forms of state control through surveillance and shaming. And of course, as I said, the managed economy, the corporatist economy in which the government doesn't own things, but it manages all things. Yeah. So yeah, man, bad news from the 20th century. That's what we got from it. Global fascism.
Yeah. I have
Am I just being a bummer today? I'm sorry, everyone. You know, let's try to end on a lighter note. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I would encourage the MAGA people to be local fascists, and instead of trying to take over Washington, D.C. and have a 30-year Trumpenreich, to, I don't know, bring back the sodomy laws from the 19th century in your local town.
Absolutely. And this, dude, you're such a genius. By the way, there's a movement. Did you see the movement to get you your own show? People want you to have your own show.
Yeah, those are idiots. Those are idiots. They think I should get a haircut. You can't listen to them.
Well, you did get a haircut, so you proved them wrong. Them wrong.
I stopped their mom, but never mind.
Yeah, your mom said she liked it short. Snap. No, and they said that you should be a regular on Tim Pool.
Yeah,
huh?
I mean, if he can offer a better contract than what I have here, I'm a freelancer. So.
to which exactly. To which I say, yes, Tim, do that. No, you should, dude.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, that's a brilliant, that's the crucial like political point to make. And that is why. So basically your choice in the world is to pick which is the lesser fascism. And this is I think that's right. And this is why I chose Brexit over the European Union. And it's why I chose MAGA essentially over the Democrats. I mean, I don't vote for anybody, but like I'm rooting for them in the battle because they're both essentially devolutionary or decentralizing movements, right? Brexit obviously is breaking apart from this grand conglomeration of nation states, hideous thing. And MAGA, you know, the nationalism, you know, America first, you know, dump NATO, let's defend ourselves, period. Let's not be the policeman of the world, all that stuff, you know. That's better than fascists who want to run the entire world with one single fascist government operating from Washington or Brussels. So,
I want to tie your earlier point about there not being any real Nazis back to the ADL.
Yeah.
This is a point that Gavin would always say. He said that the supply for real racists does not meet the demand from organizations like the ADL. This is from a documentary film, Defamation. It was made by an Israeli filmmaker. They were granted access to the ADL. It's a scene from the movie where the filmmaker is looking at suitable cases of anti-Semitism to follow because the ADL claims that over 1,000 instances of anti-Semitism happen each year. This was the best they could find. So Nuance Bro dug up this clip, and it's about the supply of Nazis that are out there in the world.
Do you have enough resources to deal with all this stuff?
No.
We're flooded every day with these things all over the country. It's a very big problem.
According to the ADL reports from the last couple of years, the average number of anti-Semitic incidents in the US is around 1,500 a year. I'm hoping Joel Levy can help me find a case I'll be able to follow.
What I'd like to do is to follow a case.
I understand, yeah.
So, every film needs like a drive. And once we have like a case that we can follow, so that would be great.
We're going over the fresh data collected over the last couple of weeks to see if there's anything I will be able to film.
We have received in the last week or so someone who employment case, someone who wasn't able to take days off for the holiday, someone who is a school teacher and wanted days off for Shavuot, someone who is a nursing student and had some issues with taking time off, as well as with taking time off. We also got a phone call from someone who was complaining about a website that had anti-Semitic remarks on it.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who was complaining about an article in the newspaper who they thought had anti-Semitic undertones. And I mean, that seems to be the roundup.
And that's what we've had in the last 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Those are the kinds of incidents that we've had recently. 5 in 2 weeks. So there's no way to predict.
There wasn't.
It's so maybe the worst part of this racket, the Holocaust industry, as Norm Finkelstein calls it, is that it undoubtedly creates anti-Semitism, provokes it, produces it. My mother's Jewish, my son's Jewish. When I saw this thing about the ADL going after Elon Musk, and when I just watched this video, fucking hate Jews. Like, it's every anti-Semitic joke I've ever heard, I heard from a Jewish friend of mine, some of whom were Israelis. You ever hang out with Israeli Jews? They'll tell you anti-Semitic jokes like every 5 seconds. It's their thing. They would look at this. I think those Jews who make those kinds of jokes, which is like every damn Jew I've ever known, basically, they would look at a video like that and they would be disgusted and embarrassed. So yeah, it is a racket. Now, the great thing is that guess who Norm Finkelstein is? He's a Jew. Not just that, but as I said, survived the Holocaust, both parents. And all the great critiques of Max Blumenthal, the greatest living critic of the state of Israel, I think, at least in America, he is, Jewish, both parents, straight up, raised religious too. All the great critics of Israel, of Zionism, of the Holocaust industry, of Jewish civil rights groups in this country and their reactionary functions, those are all Jews. Great thinkers, great intellectuals. So yeah, man, it's gross. You want to talk about the NFL? I do. Good.
NFL.
I just feel the walls closing in as I'm talking about Jews. I mean, YouTube, you understand, right? That this is all metaphor the last hour. You didn't know this? This was a metaphor. We hate Trump. This was an anti. God, did you see him with his fucking hair yesterday
and his big nose?
And he said something about Mexicans. It was so gross.
Yeah, he's fat and he's ugly.
I hate Trump so much.
Yeah,
like I'm more.
He looks like a pig. He looks like a baby pig. Ha ha ha.
I hate him more than you do.
Mm-hmm.
No, I do. YouTube, I hope you didn't misunderstand us. We just hate Trump, and we were trying to make I'm sorry, it was a poor job, poor execution. We were trying to make a point, YouTube, about anyway. No, I do want to talk about the NFL. We have 23 minutes.
Okay. I want to talk about Enrique Tarrio.
Let's do that. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Because we should have led with that. I don't know Enrique Tarrio. I've never met him. I don't know anything about him, really. I don't even know if any of my friends know him. I have no feelings for him what's one way or the other, except that I once heard that he was an informant. Why is he doing 17 years, by the way, if he was an informant?
22 years.
22? Good Lord. Someone else was 17, right?
Yeah, I think the thing about Enrique Tarrio being an informant, I think that he's a Afro-Puerto Rican, I believe, or Afro-Cuban.
Yeah.
And
white supremacist. Typical.
Yeah, white supremacist, Afro-Cuban, Afro-Puerto Rican, many such cases.
Mm-hmm.
His background is in Miami, and I think he helped the FBI with a drug bust down in Miami. I think
and they're still going to put him away for 22 years.
Yeah.
And he was not at the Capitol.
Yeah.
He wasn't even at the protest.
Dude, that's what would have happened to Gavin if Gavin stayed as the leader of the Proud Boys.
Gavin would be in for life.
Yeah.
He'd be in for life. I mean, he's in his 50s. So if they put him away for 30 or 40, that's life.
This was a masturbation challenge that Gavin started with his black friend.
I mean, man, I'm actually, I'll bet you they tried to do something with Gavin.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure they were after him. I'm sure they were investigating him, they'd love to pin something on him. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Motherfuck. Someone asked me someone on Twitter, because I was like challenging all these lefties, like nation writers, Chase Madar. Dude, I said this to you, on Twitter. I'll say it again. I'll say it to your face. You chill my blood with your totalitarianism. Cheering on Enrique Tarrio getting 22 years in a federal prison? You think that's good? And he said he wished more people were getting those kinds of sentences. Like, this guy's like a criminal justice lawyer. He's like a lefty, abolish the police kind of guy. Wow. Chills my blood. Like, I'm just like, I look at these people like they're vampires. I mean, as I said last week, there are very few political enemies or opponents of mine that I want to put in prison, only if they are like constitute a direct threat to me or people I care about. This is all entirely gratuitous, sadistic stuff. How on earth is Enrique Tarrio any kind of threat to anybody? Much less you little bourgeois lawyer in Park Slope, Brooklyn. That's who he is. That's who Chase Madar is. He lives in Park Slope, and he's calling for a black Puerto Rican working class dude from Miami to go to prison for 22 years when he wasn't even at the Capitol, because this guy has the wrong politics, which aren't even the politics that Chase Madar imagines them to be. I said that they're fascist in some sense. Yeah, in some sense. The people that Chase Madar wants to emulate, wants to bring back, are fascists in most senses. And, if you wonder at all whether David Beto and I are exaggerating the totalitarian impulses of the Democratic Party of the last 100 years or so, look at what they're doing right now. And look at what they've been doing since 2016. And every single day, we have more evidence that, and I've been an enemy of the Democratic Party my entire life. My entire life. When I was a socialist, I was anti-democrat, and I've always been an anti-democrat. I have always identified them as the problem, but I have never seen them behave this way until 2016. They were never, not in my lifetime, not since Vietnam, did they behave in this way, where they are really violating their own rules as if they are facing an existential crisis. They clearly believe they could go down, that this populist movement could take them down. They would not be resorting to such measures as mass censorship, mass surveillance, mass lawfare, putting people in prison for decades who didn't lift a finger, not just nonviolent, they weren't even there. This is, and then escalating a war to a war that might be nuclear. Ukraine has always been intimately involved with Russiagate and the attacks on MAGA. It's always been one and the same. It's all the same war. They're all connected. And those connections are fascinating, but they are everywhere. I've never seen the Democratic Party act this way. And they have been, this is the party that gave us the Vietnam War. You know, so I mean, we're talking about the worst of the worst here. They gave us Hiroshima and Nagasaki too before that, you know, so this is who we're talking about. I haven't seen them act this bad since those days, since LBJ. And the difference is, I don't know if this is bad or good. The difference is, and this is what all the geopolitical commentators say all the time. They all say this, and I wonder about it, but I guess it's true. Everyone who comments on this stuff says this generation of world leaders, the president of the United States and the presidents of all the European capitals, are idiots. Like, they're just not competent. They're not as intelligent. They have lower IQs than Democratic Party establishment, the Republican Party establishment, the establishment generally, political leaders before. They all say this all the time. And they also have more power than ever before because the weapons are much more powerful now than they were in the 1960s and 70s. So they're ideological, they're idealists. They want to remove the Russian government and replace it with their own government. I mean, these are radicals. This is just, but they're incompetent and stupid. So this is why everyone should be watching Geopolitics. I mean, every day, watch the Duran, please. Those guys are amazing, and lay it out. Oh, speaking of that, one other thing about geopolitics, and I do want to talk about the NFL, because that is the way out, by the way, just stay with me on the NFL thing. So many people may have seen this video that appeared yesterday, I believe, of this missile strike in a market in Ukraine, in the Donetsk region, in this small village. There was this open market, and it's just the most, it's the video that's hit me hardest. And you don't actually see any bodies or anything, but you feel the violence of it, the force of it. It's just kind of breathtakingly horrific. Oh, you see it's like out of a movie too. I mean, it's just, you see this missile just strike right in the middle of the street and just blow the whole thing up. And anyway, 18 people were killed, several children, I believe. And of course, I think it was less than an hour later, Zelensky released a video of it and said Russia did it. And then, of course, every Western media outlet then followed suit. Video, look at this video, Russia did it. I'm like, okay, it's in a village in Donetsk, but that's controlled by Ukraine. Okay, shit, maybe Russia did do it, because that is, I mean, I could see that being a target in one way or another. I could see it being some sort of a target. I don't think they ever would deliberately target civilians, because we can talk about that, but that's just simply, Putin's not stupid. He knows that's not in his interest. He knows that. That's why he launched a special military operation, one that's very, very limited. He could have wiped Kiev off the fucking face of the map. People don't understand this. He does not want civilian casualties. He can't avoid them in a war, but he knows that every single civilian casualty is going to work against him, because the entire world press will do what it just did with this. So anyway, I'm looking at this stuff and I'm thinking, damn, maybe, I mean, I thought it may have been an accident, but that the Russians did it. I thought that the Russians somehow were responsible for this. Just like, truly, if you've seen the video, I mean, it's hard. It's really hard for me to watch. The violence is just like breathtaking. Anyway, no. Turns out several people, including one guy who works for Bildzeitung, which is the establishment magazine or newspaper in Germany. This guy, this journalist, there's a tweet from him. He's super pro-Ukraine, super anti-Putin, anti-Russia. He says himself that according to the direction of various things, all the evidence there, the way people are looking, and the direction of the blast and a shadow of the missile itself,
He says, I hope I don't get lynched for this. He says it's coming from the direction of the Ukraine forces. Is this the strike itself, or is this? Oh, here we go.
This is that tweet you were mentioning. The strike itself is in the comments, but yeah,
that's it. Cool. Yeah. There it is. So he's a super pro-Ukraine guy, and he was actually afraid, as he said, to post this. But it's coming from the northwest, and if you look on a map, this village is about 20 miles north of Donetsk city, I think. It's just north of Donetsk city. And to the northwest is all Ukraine territory. And that's where this comes from. And there's multiple pieces of evidence from the videos. So this too sort of took my breath away, because I believed it. And I've been skeptical and critical of every word out of Zelensky's mouth. But even I was like, well, this sure looks bad. And like, sure looks like Russia did it. I mean, I don't see, but nope. And I can't tell you how many times I've had a case like this, and I've hunted down each one of them. Each time I see a report about some atrocity by Russians, I hunt it down. I researched it all the way to the bottom, as far as I can go. And in every single case, there is no clear evidence that Russia did the thing. None. Zero. All these alleged assassinations of journalists and political opponents by Putin, all these poisonings everyone's heard about, go chase those down. Go read those. Go read about the Skripal poisonings. That one's hilarious. It's such an obvious fraud. Navalny, there has been just like massive amounts of documentation of that guy being a complete shyster and crook. He's also an arch racist. People don't even know this. Navalny, who got this Oscar, Hollywood bestowed him with knighthood, basically. Yeah, all a fucking fraud. The demonization of Putin just goes berserk. They can't, even Henry Kissinger said, the demonization of Putin is not a policy. Basically, he was saying the elites are very lazy in the way that they think about Putin and talk about him by simply saying he's a monster all the time, instead of actually coming up with a clear analysis of what he wants and who he is, which is just state security. But, and then figuring out some rational policy to address it. No, he's a monster. He's an irrational monster. He's a sadist. He loves killing children in the street with missiles. Of course he doesn't, because he knew exactly how that would be used. I'm not saying because he's a nice guy. I don't think he is. But he understands. He's a rational actor. Very rational actor. That's what drives them crazy. Whew, I was just so chilling when I found that out, that missile came from Ukraine, which, by the way, means it came from us because that missile was made here. Some group of Americans made that missile. Anyway, all right.
Does this conclude our sports segment?
No, we haven't gotten to it. The most skilled, I'm going to say skilled boxer of all time. I'm no longer saying he's the greatest because things have gotten complicated, but
Jake Paul.
Yes, Jake Paul, the most skilled. Boy, his footwork is just magical. Oh God, he can't even lift a toe. Dude has no footwork. Jake Paul's ridiculous. Those guys it's such a fraud, by the way, that whole thing. That last thing was Nate definitely threw it. No doubt about it. It was total rigged. Nate Diaz. Lomachenko. Vasyl Lomachenko, the greatest, I think, most skilled boxer of all time, is Ukrainian. And the Klitschko brothers, the great heavyweight champions, one of whom is the mayor of Kiev now, also Ukrainian. That's all I got. So now the sports section. So in an effort to relax, to help with my nerve issue, indirectly, I've been like forcing myself to watch sports recently, and it's football season today. In fact,
football. Oh, the NFL season started exactly 2 minutes ago, dude. It's like Christmas morning for sports fans. It is. So I've been watching like a lot of these NFL commentary shows, right? Of which there are hundreds all over everywhere, YouTube, TV. And I did this last year at the beginning of the season too. Like I'm just curious, like what people thought about who was going to win or whatever. And it's, first of all, it's ESPN a lot. So that's a super woke company. So it's like every NFL show has to have a woman anchor now. It's
ESPN, same company as ABC and Disney.
It's wild. Every show about the NFL has a woman anchor, like talking about like being an analyst. Like, how many women have I ever known in my life who know anything about football, really? Who could be where do they find these chicks? Do they invent them in a lab? What is this? Like, where do they come from?
Are you telling me women don't like to talk about football? Are you telling me? Are you telling me?
That's what, I'm a Nazi, man. That's what we think. That's how wild and out there I am. But no, so women, of course, because it's the NFL, you know, it's like, and a lot of ex-players or commentators, like it's like half the guys are black, the analysts are black, very working class. You know, yeah, they all went to college, but they were football players, so you know they didn't really study. So they're just dudes and women and whatever. They're brilliant. They're geniuses. I mean, have you ever heard them like break down a team or a game or a player? I mean, the levels of analysis, the depth of knowledge, the ways in which they are, how articulate they are, the clarity and the sophistication. I'm serious. When they are talking about football, they're Einstein. I mean, I marvel at like the intellect. I'm not kidding. And I think about the men in this country and probably other countries too, but I know American men, you know, the amount of their mental energy that goes into football, to not even playing it, to thinking about it, and other sports, basketball, baseball, whatever, just immense amount of intellectual power, immeasurable amounts of intellectual power are devoted to sports in this country. And I just wonder, as a lifetime sports fan, love them to pieces, love sports, love playing, love watching, love all of it. I wonder, though, if we might be better served in some ways if we let's just say, like, let's take 50% of that energy. You can still watch football. Just take 50% and devote it to just damn near anything else. Just anything else. Swear to God, just anything other than who's going to win the Lions-Chiefs game. It's just a thought. I bet this audience does not watch sports, don't even know who the Lions and the Chiefs are. But that you know that you're surrounded by men who are very otherwise intelligent. That's my point. These people are not stupid at all. They're quite, if you know anything about football, you know that on a high level, football requires a very sharp brain. It is incredibly complex sport. But no, it's that they choose to devote it to games, which, you know, the fun thing is that they're just entertainment. The problem is that they have no real consequence in the real world. So they can do whatever they want with us in the real world, as long as we're happy watching our football games.
Do you feel the same way about video games and porn?
Yeah. Oh, video games, even more so. Yeah. I dislike video games even more than sports. Much more. Which I feel it's like a puritanical streak in me. I agree. Because they're both just forms of leisure, and Thaddeus Russell is supposed to be pro leisure always. It doesn't mean I need to like every form of leisure. Of course, I'll defend your right to smoke weed and play video games all day, but we're not getting anything out of it. Renegade History of the United States is about the history of renegades, of people who broke the rules and did bad things
in ways that benefited everyone. That's what that book's about. That's what I'm about. Like the gangsters in Prohibition who sold liquor when it was illegal, but everybody wanted it. And by doing that, they ended Prohibition. They served everyone, you know? Playing video games all day or even for an hour doesn't do anything for anybody. It's non-interactive. It's non-social. That's the problem with these things, is that they're non-social. That's my problem. And so it's not like I moralize against it, like not to say that you should be social. I'm just saying, like, if it doesn't benefit me at all or other people at all, then I have no reason to invest anything in you. This is actually like a very rational, transactional approach. This is not idealist humanitarian nonsense. This is like, yeah, if you choose to retreat from the world, I'm going to retreat from you. That's all. So also, if you ever need aid, there's no aid coming because it's not mutual. See, I'm an anarchist, man. I believe in mutual aid. Mutual has to be two people. So if you're just fundamentally anti-social in those ways, you're not part of the new mutual aid community or network.
What about the people who, instead of watching NFL, like to entertain themselves by speculating about Obama's sex life?
Well, we do need jesters in my utopian city. I thought you liked sports.
I do. I mean,
I'm sorry.
I like
I'm
pro
sorry,
wrestling.
everyone. I'm sorry, everyone, for my little sermon.
The news we should be covering is that CM Punk got fired, but
did he?
Yeah.
From the WW, which one is it?
AEW now. He got fired from AEW, so he's been fired from two companies now. He's the real rebel.
Another really puritanical, like, gross part of me is that I'm really anti-pro wrestling. It's bad. It's just like very like snooty, snobby, bi-coastal elite shit. I'm sorry, everybody. I just feel that way.
It's the greatest American art form.
I've tried. I want to like it. I've tried. I just can't. I just really can't. And I never understood the people who are actual martial artists who then go over there like Ronda Rousey. I'm like, wait, how can you do that? Obama is a gay crackhead, which is cool. And I have, for the first time, two reasons to like him. But I hope it's true. I don't think it is. And I gotta say, I'm this is the most disappointed in Tucker Carlson I've ever been. I thought that was pretty, speaking of puritanical, that's all that is. I mean, let's say it's true that Obama sucked this guy's dick and smoked crack with him when he was 20 or whatever it was. So what? And then therefore what? Obama was a bad president? What? Like,
well, do you think he would have been elected if middle America knew that in 2008?
No. Okay, so if the story is that was suppressed by the press, okay, let's see that evidence. That's the story, not that he did the thing, that they suppressed it. That's a different story. That's a totally legitimate, of course. And I want to see that story. So why aren't we talking about that story? We're not, because Tucker's got, there are a few areas where he really sucks. Like, he's great in a lot of ways, but boy, his laugh, his penchant for really viciously mocking people. He did that on Fox, on his Fox show. I haven't seen it do that much this time, but he used to do it all the time. I mean, people who I hated, sure, but like, you don't do that in a forum like that. That's just like, it's just cheap ad hominem. He resorted to ad hominems.
Well, it's tabloid stuff. It's like,
but he stands for the other thing. He stands against that, right? That's his whole thing, is he's so for open and free dialogue. And that's not going to happen if you just ad hominem attack people like Sean Hannity fucking does. I've been on Sean Hannity's radio show twice, and I was on Laura Ingraham's show once, and those motherfuckers just yelled at me the entire time. I mean, they were actually better than Tucker because they just yelled. They didn't actually attack me personally. They just yelled. But it's the same thing. It's just, you end up getting shouted out of the conversation. So it's anti-intellectual. It's terrible. And then this thing about, really being eager to like expose the enemy's underwear. Like, okay, so he has soiled underwear. The enemy, the people we all hate. Great. Now what? I mean, and then it's also basically reactionary, anti-gay, anti-drug shit. That's all. I mean, that's all it is. Because that's why it's salacious. It's because it's about gay sex and drugs. It'd be less interesting if it were a woman. It'd still be interesting, but it'd be less interesting if it were about drugs, if it were about a woman and drinking beers or drinking whiskey. Would it be that much of a news story? No, no one would care. So, yeah, if he had sex with a woman and he got blackout drunk on whiskey one night, and that's the story, would anyone care? No. But this is huge because, no, it's about gay sex and it's about drugs, the two things that are still illicit in some way or another, or at least Tucker Carlson wants them to be illicit. So it appeals to that old fucking nasty conservative element in our culture that is still anti-homosexual and anti-drugs. And that's why we have the drug war. And that's why if they had their way, we would go back to the laws of not too long ago when gays were hunted down by the cops literally in the streets and locked up just for having sex. There, I said it. I know you agree with everything.
My position is that Obama is gay. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Do you think he is?
Oh, obviously.
Really? I don't know. I mean, I don't know the guy.
Well,
I never met him. Never saw him in person.
Well, I think people in power don't necessarily have the most conservative sex lives. I think it's not totally out of the realm of possibility that from whatever cultures you,
oh no, it's definitely possible. I'm not discounting it. And there is, I mean, I'm pretty sure Michelle is not a biological male.
Yeah,
but I have noted this from the get-go. They have always been to me especially platonic seeming, even for first couples, right? I mean, first couples can't be sexual really, but they at least looked like they were romantic couples, to some extent. I don't know. There was a stiffness and a coldness between Michelle and Barack. I always sensed. You didn't really see them like.
Trump
melting.
Is definitely banging Melania, right? Like, sex
they
is.
Look like a couple, right? They look like a couple.
Yeah,
for better and worse, right? Like they've been through war, like most couples have. Like it's, right, and banging too. Yes, there's been banging. Yeah, I don't sense a whole lot of banging going on in Martha's Vineyard on that little that rocky outcropping there, except maybe with his former chef, maybe. And maybe that's why he's but gotta go.
Yeah, that's why I'm voting for Trump.
Well, if I were a conspiracy theorist, I'd be putting those stories together. Handsome young man that chef was. I'm just saying. Here I am. Look at me, gay bashing right after I shamed against it. I mean, I moralized against it. I am so sorry, everyone. I will never do that or talk about the NFL again. All right. If you want to come yell at me in person, you can do it right now. Go to Patreon, patreon.com/unregistered. If you join at any level, you can get access to Unregistered Live, which is our hangout on Zoom right after Unreported. Right now, we're going there. Michael and I, we hang out there, and people yell at me and tell me that I shouldn't say things like what I've said and other stuff like that. And it's really fun, actually. We've been doing it for years, and it's the highlight of my week every Thursday night. So join us at patreon.com/unregistered.
Yep. Last minute super chat real quick from Handyman Tennessee LLC. Tucker is the best utopian jester.
Okay. I mean, I thought I sort of was, but that's okay. Michael, you are a prince among men, and God bless you. And thank you. Okay. See ya.
See ya.
What?